Welcome to the Boys Club. I'm Danny Phantom.
And I'm H2 Olga, and today we're discussing The Boys, Season 2, Episode 5, entitled We Gotta Go Now.
Yeah, we do. I have no idea what the episode titles for the show mean.
Me neither. Maybe they're from the graphic novel. We didn't check.
No idea.
So, Dan, what did you think of this episode?
I thought it was really good. I'm continuously impressed at how they manage all of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many, and everybody got a moment again.
Yeah.
And I'd say, yeah, I mean, I have very few complaints about this one.
Me too.
Even the Deep, I found his storyline a little bit more interesting this time.
How refreshing. We didn't resent every moment we saw him. Obviously, the one that was the least impactful was Kimiko and Frenchie. Like, they just didn't have as much as everybody else.
I wouldn't necessarily have said it was the least impactful. Maybe they didn't have as much time, but I actually quite enjoyed that because I felt like they're really becoming their own individuals, separate from each other. Like, even though their storyline's about each other.
That's true.
The fact that he isn't just, like, pining after her, that he actually stood up, like, he's like, screw it.
Yeah.
Like, that was an important moment for him.
That's true.
The fact that she isn't just, like, his, stereotypical
Going on to get on, yeah.
docile. I think that's great. Great action from her.
That's true. Yeah, that scene was so brutal in the Russian restaurant where they like talking about musicals. Accurate to Russian life. Yeah, I agree though. What they did have was good, and it was important to get their individual stories moving.
Yeah. I think the Butcher stuff was maybe his best stuff ever.
So good. Because it gave him dimension too.
Yeah. I think, we had both the fun action of having Black Noir in here. Mm-hmm. We had, I would say, the first bit of, would you say there was development for Black Noir in this episode? There's development for the mystery, maybe.
Yeah. The fact that, this wasn't really development of Black Noir. He just continues to be really hard to kill. Pretty indestructible.
Well, what do you take from the fact that Edgar was watching? Do you think that the entirety of this whole thing was all Edgar just ordered Black Noir to do the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so Black Noir you don't think had any agency involved in this?
He probably agreed. Like, I don't think he's some kind of, like, robot. I think he has a personality, but I think he has a loyalty to Vought.
Yeah.
I have no idea what to make of Black Noir. Like, I genuinely don't know if I should be sitting there thinking, like, he's brilliant and lost at sea, and Vought is taking advantage of that, or if he really is just like...
Yeah.
I don't know what the alternative is.
That's the thing. If we had just had this episode and we didn't have the moments like the teddy bear or the piano or whatever... I would say
him crying in front of the statue.
I would say he was a robot.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that there is a bit of taking advantage of this guy.
Yeah. That's the kindest thing I can imagine for him at this point.
What did you take away from Butcher, threatening to reveal the photos? Do you buy that Edgar would let him survive after?
I think Edgar is planning another attack, be it digital on Butcher's accounts to try and hack him to see if these photos exist. I'm sure they have a way of trying to dig that up, because if he removes the threat of blackmail, then Butcher is no longer a threat. I also, I don't think those photos exist.
No, I don't either.
The little shit-eating grin he and Huey shared at the end. What did you think of Butcher's backstory now that we know more about him and his past?
And his brother.
Yes.
Of course, this is from the creator of Supernatural, so it's all about brotherly love.
It's called The Boys. I think that was more of a sign-off from the creator of Supernatural.
But I like that. I think that really added a dimension to their relationship. I really like their dynamic this season, and I think that Butcher being at his lowest point, but also learning more about him than we ever did before, seeing his aunt and all that stuff, and more of him with his dog.
Terror, the pig fucker.
Terror, the pig fucker. I thought it was just great. Him, basically being, suicidal and having that moment of genius, but also that moment of keep going on, I thought was great.
Yeah. And Huey, like, relating to him on that level, but both of them choosing to keep going and fighting. It was really touching. Yeah.
So I think they did a great job of balancing the drama and, and the action and stuff in that part.
I agree.
Meanwhile, I do want to talk about the Deep a little bit because I actually thought some of the humor was legitimately funny. And B, connecting him with Queen Maeve makes him more interesting. Because Queen Maeve probably had her best episode, I would argue, aside from maybe the airplane one.
Yeah. I think this was a really good Maeve episode as well. And yes, regarding the Deep, the Katie Couric interview was really funny. So this episode was actually written by Katie Couric's daughter. So that was kind of a funny thing to touch. Look up and be like, I wonder why they chose Katie Couric. Oh, okay. She was available. Inside connection. But yeah, going back to Maeve, this did bring stuff forward because at least like Elena was involved in the decision making and like also still agree, now they're working together and choosing romance, but also still like discussing the threats and also
Maeve is actively working to deal with her problem instead of just running away from it. And that's what you want out of a, she's not the protagonist of the show, but of her protagonist of her story. Right. And we don't know exactly what that means, but it's interesting that she needs the Deep for it, while still calling him a douchebag or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I love that she's just like, no, you're a piece of shit. Like, that's not going to change. I just need an ally. And as long as you're okay with me still thinking little of you.
Well, and speaking of allies, they definitely didn't disappoint with the commentary about using the LGBT community.
The corporate allyship.
Yes.
That is a facade that doesn't want to acknowledge that in a way keeps Maeve also still in a closet by not letting her be out as bi because it's less confusing for the general public and trying to butch up her girlfriend to like continue the stereotypical masculine feminine gender roles like
and also like
so gross.
Just the general like how can we use this for our advantage as opposed to what do you want to do about I thought all of that was great. I also liked all the movie sort of nods and things like that.
I feel like this really went in on Marvel and DC like more so at least their cinematic universes.
Definitely.
So funny.
I loved also the like girls get it done moment, which was very reminiscent of Endgame with all the girls getting together. Not gonna say it. People like that. I'll leave it at that. We got a good amount of A-Train in this episode too, and I personally have been fascinated how they have made me feel sort of bad for him, even though he is who he is.
I might chalk that up to the performance because when I'm watching individual scenes of him where he is like opening up more and being like sensitive and, about to lose it when he's having like a heart attack or that scene last season in the clothing store, like I really feel for him in those moments. But then when he has these other things like with Ashley where she threatens him with his morality clause where I'm like, he might get his comeuppance and lose everything. And he does deserve that because on paper, he's an awful person.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, like, so many of them. So.
I think they do a good job of making you feel multiple aspects of him where, like, you see the struggles he has still, even where he is as being a black man. So you can't help but sort of empathize with that. And then you see the sort of athlete commentary, and then he's just also an asshole. So it's like,
but he's also a murderer. So speaking of the racial commentary,
the scene with Stormfront,
that was so deeply uncomfortable, and
I think very well done.
I think as a white person, I should sit with that more. God.
I was excited when Aya Cash was gonna join the cast. Again, we're fans of You're the Worst. I am very impressed at how much of a commanding presence she has been and how much she has stolen the spotlight in a good way.
Yes. They're really screwing with us with her character because, yes, she's manipulative and pulling the strings, and obviously she's Liberty, a racist murderer. But even so, like, the things that she says individually, not including the scene with A-Train, are not, like, individually wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where it puts us in this very uncomfortable position where as the season ramps up, they're giving us more of a comparable moments between her being kind of like speaking the truth to power, but also being a horrible racist.
Well, I don't know if I would say that she said anything that I'd agree with in this particular episode.
What about her stuff with Starlight's mom?
Okay, yeah.
That's the scene I was saying. Yeah, like, that's her being like, oh, if I had a different, appreciate what you have. Yeah. I'm not saying anything about society in this episode. Yeah. Her stuff before about corporate nonsense was other episodes, but here it was more personal and to Starlight. And
well, let's talk about the Starlight stuff. So I thought it was an interesting episode for her. Yeah, dealing with the mom stuff, which is still sort of left hanging, but another step forward in that. And then her dealing with Stormfront and Stormfront calling her out. I think that they play well off of each other. I don't know that I buy that Stormfront figured every aspect out about what she did
that quickly and that in the background.
I really am interested. I can't wait to see Stormfront interact with Edgar because part of me is like, did Edgar figure it out and tell Stormfront? I'm still unclear on which parts of Stormfront's agenda are her own and which parts are potentially Vought's.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's so hard to tell. I guess also the other factor is Starlight even says to Stormfront.
Yeah.
It's so hard with the double S's. Yeah. She tells her, oh, Vought has been moving you around for years, keeping you like hidden as Liberty. So I guess we should take that at face value that Vought does know that she's Liberty.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's clear.
Yeah.
I like the fact that Stormfront is planning something for her, and she just seems so in control of everything. And she's manipulating her, and she's manipulating Homelander. And speaking of which,
oh man,
interesting episode they find every single fucking episode's great for him.
He's again, he's the best at being the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
where do we want to start?
There's some sort of weird mindfuckery that I have with Homelander where I do almost I don't want him to be found out, which is dumb. But I think also it's like when he is found out, that's when he will do the reality of, melting everybody in half.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
He's getting more and more.
Yeah. Close to that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did think it was interesting that in some ways Stormfront reined him in.
Oh, she absolutely does. Because she shows him that violence isn't the answer in a way. No, but she shows.
But also burn my boobies.
Yeah. I mean, it's yes. Well, I guess we'll get there. But yeah, she shows him that there's more ways to manipulate and control people than through his powers. Yeah. He doesn't have to tackle it he doesn't even have to tackle it himself. He doesn't need to insert himself into the situation to fix it, as clearly didn't work for him at the protest, and what I guess led to his panic attack breakdown moment. Also really interesting to watch. So with Stormfront using social media and pulling strings behind the scenes.
Well, so this episode is interesting after last week, right? And a part of me wonders whether it fully makes sense. And in some ways even being doesn't it sort of negate, what was the point of last week in a weird way? When you get him to the point where he's like, I don't need anyone. And then this week he's like, oh, well, I need her.
That's interesting.
I do think it makes sense that he was at his lowest points. And so he was willing to try anything. And also that the sex scene, I think the fact that she was on his level makes sense for his character being actually excited about that. And the sadistic nature of both of them and masochistic nature. But yeah, it makes me go, what was the point in some ways of getting him to this moment of I don't need anyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in a way he so desperately wants to believe he doesn't need anyone, and he tried to put that into practice. And he went on a mission and he killed a civilian, and then he had these people protesting. So he drops in his value and he's like, I can't. And that's part of the breakdown is I can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they hate me when I do it alone. And then Stormfront comes in and is there when he needs her, and she's his equal, and he really resented her trying to raise herself up before, but now,
just to be totally conspiracy theorist, what do you think is it possible that Vought or Stormfront is like responsible for the video of him? I mean, probably not.
I don't see what that would.
I think it leads to him needing her in a way. You know, it could be a manipulation. I don't think that that's what it is, but it's just an interesting idea to think about.
It all depends on, again, Vought's relationship with Stormfront, too. I think the bigger conspiracy theory that I'm, like, concerned with, I guess, is whether or not somehow Homelander and Stormfront are related.
Oh, really? Where did that come from? Because of their powers?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And she's old.
She is old.
And she did disappear at one point in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And
fascinating.
What if?
That is the kind of thing the show would
I know. I don't put him past incest. And he was like raised by Vought.
Yeah.
So
like she could be his mom.
She could be his mom and just not give a shit.
Fascinating. I hadn't thought about that.
Also, it has a commentary about like inbred racists.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Hadn't thought of that one.
It just came to me.
We hit on every character? I think so, right?
I think so. We had a hint of man in scrubs.
Oh, yes.
But because not everyone pays attention to
casting news.
That was Shawn Ashmore, so a named actor,
with
fairly well known.
Lighter.
Wink.
I am fascinated to see where that goes.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.